Okay, so now let's take a look at types. So if we select the stair, we can change this to different types. You can see that here, the concrete, precast, things of that nature that are already preset. So those are the stairs that we have kind of at our disposal to get started. So inside of this, once you get inside, you should duplicate immediately. So let's just do that. We'll give it our best name, and then here you can get into kind of different calculation rules or widths, stuff of that nature. You notice that we changed that to 12 inches, but it didn't, because that still fit this rule, it didn't change it here. We could tell it that it's always going to be 5 feet, and it's having a problem with that. Oh, minimum run width. Yeah, I don't know why it didn't like that. Okay, so and then we have a series of other things that we can start to look at. So the construction type, the 2-inch tread, 1-inch nosing. If we zoom into this, you'll see we have that nosing. It's a 2-inch thick by nosing, so that's what's controlling that. If we change this and we get in here, we can start playing around. Now once we start playing around, of course we're changing that family type, but I think just for demonstrations we should go ahead and just play around a little bit. So you can see that it increased that dimension to increase the tread thickness. Alright, do you see that? Nosing length, so let's just say we do something obnoxious like 3 inches. You see that pushed the riser back there. So these aren't things that necessarily would I do, but there are things that you can do. Let's see what base vinyl 4-inch is. Okay, I have no idea why that is a default thing, but there it is. There, we could see what the rest of these do. Okay, so if you had a need to have like kind of a very large piece of steel be your tread profile, you could do that. Alright, we'll have to figure out why that is. Okay. Well, there is a lot of different things. Front, left, right. Okay, so you can see inside of it that actually if we didn't have these stringers, you would see, and we might as well go ahead and edit that. Let's go ahead and get rid of the supports, the stringers. So there you go. So that is putting that nosing on the left and right. So so there you go. There's some other stuff that you can do. Now we kind of made a mistake in immediately kind of adjusting this without duplicating it. I have no intention of using this, but just for good practice sake, we'll just set it back to the way it was. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's just take a look at some of these other commands. We took off the supports. Let's look at what it means to get those back. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit this again. Let's just turn on the stringer on the right. So the way right and left works is that as you face it going up, the right side is what they consider right, the left side's then the other side. So what that does is it gets us back to having that support, that big beam. But let's take a look at some of the other options. So the other option in here is like, okay, carriage open. What does that do? So you can see what it does is that it creates a stringer that's below the tread, and the tread and riser are cut out of it. So it decreases its structural integrity, but then it makes it so that you don't have that big massive piece. So there are a lot of things that are going on when you're designing stairs, because they are a structural piece. You do need to keep that in mind. And one thing that you would want to keep in mind for this carriage is like, is this dimension enough material to support the stair? Of course, you'd want to consult your structural engineer, but if we want to change that, we're going to have to go into these 3 dots. This is something that I'm not particularly fond of Revit on. They just go into dialog box insanity, and it's easy to lose where you're at. Very easy to lose where you're at. So bear with me, but this is what we're trying to battle. So anytime you see the 3 dots, it means that you're about to go into a new dialog box. So if I want to change that, let's poke around here a little bit and see what we have to do. So depth on run. Let's just change that. I'm going to change that. I'm going to always try to change it kind of a large dimension so that we see what's going on. Depth on run. So it added a great deal. So that really was adding that extra depth that we thought we might need to make it structurally sound. So that's interesting. I think it was like 2.5 actually. Just put that back. Structural depth on landing. So that would be over here. Let's just go to like 1.5 feet. So, okay, so it added, some depth here for this way. You can see that it doesn't really align because we did not add it to the run. So if we had added it here, it should start to align. Interesting. I think it actually lowered below the actual tread. That is interesting. These are things that I really not intending to do. I just trying to deduce what each of those pieces are doing. So I just went ahead and undid it. So that's the actual support. So again, once you start going into these dialogues, you might want to duplicate if you're intending on actually making changes. You can see that each of these has a material that can be chosen, so that's cool. But let's go back into this original, this is our custom stair, and look at other things that you can control. So if we look at this, in fact, I want this to be none, and I think I'm going to add the carriage open to this other side. So it'll be on the outside of the stair. And let's look at the left lateral offset. So let's say that we wanted our stair to look like it was floating a bit. So if we, let's move that a foot. So what that did, that offset, it changed where that stringer is located. So I could push it, keep pushing it inward until I imagine I get to the actual, width of the stair, and it disappeared on me. So, don't want to go too far. You can do all kinds of crazy things as far as modeling in Revit. It doesn't mean that it's structurally stable. So if I wanted that, to kind of look like it's floating. Now, this would have to be, some plate steel, right? To actually make that work. I'm gonna turn this material down a little bit. Just annoying. Okay. All right, so this is it gives you a little bit of sense. Now the other thing that we might want to take a look at would be the tread. So I've got into supports. Okay, that's all good. So actually, if we look at the construction, the tread is in here. Let's look at different nosings. We already did that, but we didn't look at nosings. So why would you do that? Still not sure. Still wondering about that one. So if we turn off and we go to default, we can see that then it just goes into a kind of a straight plank and doesn't do that little chamfer. All right, so and then we look at maybe the riser itself. So that's going straight down. What does slanted mean? All right, so slanted, it gives you that same 1 inch. And we're still, if you want to make your stair ADA accessible, you need to have 1 inch from the back of the tread to the nose of the next tread. So that's what this did. So it did slope it, but it kind of built that slope into both the tread and the rise. So again, this is just the different parts, but it's important to know kind of where those parts are so that you can control them. So this is where you would add material to rise and tread. And riser thickness, 1/4 inch. Let's see what happens when we go to, like, say 1 inch. Let's try that. Say that 1 inch. Okay, so that's that thickness. I guess that makes sense. Let's go back to 1/4 inch. And then we have the default profile, and again we have these kind of weird things, but if we wanted to still, I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm just going to go back to the default because that scares me. Extend riser behind the tread. Extend tread under riser. Okay, so you see how that worked. It like pushed it through. Join all riser and tread. So if there's one monolithic material, that would make a lot of sense. Okay, so I'm just going to cancel that. But that gives you a pretty good idea of all the different things. I know there's a lot, but there you go.